Welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. Joining me on the phone is Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, how are you this evening?
I'm doing all right. Just got done with a fantasy draft. My wife drafted a better team than I did, so that's pretty frustrating. But I'm always ready to talk some football with you, brother.
Right on. And we continue our tour of NFL divisions. Today we tackle the NFC North. And the first team we should talk about there is the Green Bay Packers and the saga of Aaron Rodgers. Jimmy, the Green Bay Packers are plus 1,300 to win the Super Bowl. They are plus 550 to win the NFC. They are minus 177 to win the NFC North. And their over-under sits at 10.5. Jimmy, do the Green Bay Packers win more or less than 10.5 games?
So I'm basing everything on the Green Bay Packers that Aaron Rodgers is physically and mentally okay and continues to be Aaron Rodgers. So I have them projecting in the 13 to 14 win range. So I do have them over on the 10.5. But as you know, here on No Broken Legs, we're about smart bets making money. The only one of the bets for the NFC for them that I would make would be them winning their division. And I'm not willing to bet 170 on it. It's just not a smart bet. So I would stay away from all the Packers bets because I think when they get to the playoffs, I don't think they're one of the premier teams in the NFC right now. I think they're still good enough to win the NFC North, but I don't think they're quite good enough to win the NFC.
Yeah, I agree with that all around. I have them as an over because I think they're going to be a 13-win team, maybe 12, but I think they're going to wind up 12 to 14, but I think they wind up right at 13. And the other teams in this division, I just don't see how they overtake the Packers. We'll get to Minnesota here in a second, but they really hurt my feelings last year by being terrible. I thought they were going to win the division. I thought they'd be right there with Green Bay, and they were a mess. And, you know, who knows what's going to happen with Chicago. We'll get to them here in a second, and nobody thinks the Lions are going to be any good. So the Green Bay's winning this division. I actually think minus 177 is really good odds for them. I don't see how they don't win this division unless, you know, if Aaron Rodgers gets traded, which isn't going to happen, or if something happens to Aaron Rodgers, but I think he'll be focused in season. He showed that last year. He was pissed at the front office then too, so he still put up an MVP season.
Absolutely. You know, it's just wild how much, you know, as an organization, they're banking on Aaron Rodgers being a professional. But
yeah, I mean, and how frequently he comes through on that bet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's still talent-wise a top 5 NFL quarterback. You know, Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams are both absolute studs. MVS, Lazard, and Tunyon are good enough. I do think losing Bakhtiari is going to make a difference. Like, that's definitely been a security blanket Rodgers has had for years, and that won't be there. But even on the other side of the ball, their defense from the linebackers backwards through the secondary could be one of the best in the league. And the schedule sets up real nice to them. I mean, they have a pretty soft start. I'm excited for the Week 3 game where the Packers, I believe, they go to San Francisco. And that could be a game where we find out how dialed in Aaron Rodgers is on the season.
So that game is September 26th, so that would be either Week 3 or I think that's Week 3.
Yeah, it should be Week 3.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting test, really, of both these teams, because if Green Bay wants to progress in the playoffs past teams, that's one of the teams they're going to have to be better than, not just Tampa Bay, but if people are saying San Francisco is going to be really good, and then you have the Rams, and you have Seattle, I don't know where Green Bay fits in all of that. They might be the 5th best team in the NFC. It's possible.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, they picked up, who was it? Randall Cobb?
They did bring Randall Cobb.
Yeah, they brought Randall Cobb back. So, you know, Aaron Rodgers is happy now. All of that was for Randall Cobb. So, I guess good job by you.
Yeah.
It just seems like a lot of drama for not a lot of payoff. And he still doesn't have any guarantees that he's going to get traded next offseason.
Nope.
So, Aaron Rodgers is plus 1,000 to repeat as MVP. That's kind of tempting.
It's kind of tempting, but I think I'd probably stay away from it because I think it it would take one of the best statistical seasons in NFL history to get everybody to vote for him after what's happened this offseason.
That would be pretty funny, though.
It would be.
His regular season over-under for Aaron Rodgers sits at 4,500. Over a 17-game season, at times it feels like he'll get that just throwing to Adams.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, I would hammer that over for sure.
And he also sits at 35.5 touchdowns as his over-under. I like him to get to 40.
Yeah, yep.
I don't think that's a tough task for him.
No.
Okay, moving on to Aaron Jones. His over-under sits at 1,075.5 yards, which seems really low for a running back. A lot of the rushing totals look really low.
They do, but I think you're seeing that, so many offenses are throwing the ball, so many offenses aren't using bell cow backs. So I think that's why, but I think Aaron Jones goes over that number pretty easily.
Yeah, he gets a lot of carries. They like to use him a lot, and he'll have a game or two here and there where he'll just go off for like $150, $175. He does that 2 times. He's already more than a third of the way there.
Yep.
Aaron Jones's touchdown mark sits at 9.5.
Do you know if that's just carrying or is that combined total?
That would just be rushing yards. Rushing touchdowns.
I don't know if he gets 10 rushing touchdowns.
I don't know either. I feel like that's an easy win, but that's partially because he had the 4-touchdown game that sort of skews everything from last year.
Exactly. Because that's the one thing with the Packers. Like, it doesn't change the fact that when they get to the goal line, Aaron Rodgers wants to throw the ball for his touchdowns.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And maybe staying away from him is one way to look at it, while maybe betting on Davante Adams, who, if I can find his numbers, I will tell you what they are.
I'm not sure you could throw out a number for yards or touchdowns that I would say take the under.
Jeez, Will Fuller's in here. They got to have Davante Adams. Apparently, they don't have a yardage number for Davante Adams. That makes my brain hurt.
Yeah, that's weird.
Well, they probably couldn't come up with a number that was... They probably came up with a number, and the sharps at the sports books were like, no, that's not high enough. And they're like, sir, we can't make it 2,400. Yeah, I can't find a touchdown mark for him with Caesars either. Interesting.
That's funny. But that is a big part of it. I mean, I believe Davante Adams is a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. I just think his route running is superb. His hands are really good. For the most part, he stays healthy, and that's the only person Aaron Rodgers really wants to throw the football to.
Yeah, he'll have and especially for fantasy and PPR leagues, he'll get you 10 points a couple of weeks just in receptions.
Yep. So if you can find player props for Davante Adams, hammer the overs.
All right, let's move on up north to the Minnesota Vikings. Jimmy, I said earlier this team hurt my feelings last year, and they really did, but they're plus 300 to win the NFC North. Their over-under sits at 9, and Jimmy, I'm taking the over again like an idiot.
I would also be taking the over because I think they win 10 games.
Okay, good. I feel better about it. I feel like everything just sort of went wrong for them last year.
But I do think they get it.
Yeah, it just seemed like just an all-around shit season for them. And they'd sort of been in that upper middle of the pack, and they just never really got anything done in the playoffs. And then, they lose Stefanski to the Browns, and I don't know. But they also have an issue with Kirk Cousins and his vaccination status, which is something that's a little nerve-wracking if you're putting money on the Vikings. Which I would strongly advise not to. We like Delvin Cook; he's really good.
One thing you've gotten here from the No Broken Legs division podcast have been a lot of information about coaching staffs you might not have cared for, but I think it really does make a difference, other than at hiring time. It's something I will forever be pro Gary Kubiak. I loved his offensive schemes. Especially for fantasy football. We know he made Matt Schaub league winners multiple times.
Hear.
And his son Clint is now the offensive coordinator for the Vikings, so that probably gets familiarity for the coaching staff. So I think that's cool. But I also, as a Browns fan, Keenan McCardle was hired as their wide receivers coach, which I think is awesome.
Wow, I never knew what happened to him after he bounced out of the league.
Yeah, he's been coaching, and now he's their head wide receiver coach, which I think is really cool. I think that's great for Justin Jefferson. So the only one of those bets I would probably bet, I think it's a sneaky good bet to bet the Vikings to win the North. Because there has to be some percent of a chance that after 3 or 4 weeks, Aaron Rodgers doesn't act professional and it all implodes in Green Bay. And if that would happen, to me, the Vikings would be the only other viable team to win the division. So
that's an interesting take.
I don't think it's a big chance, but I do see that as a possibility. You know, we love Dalvin Cook. I love Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. I actually think if there was a player to grab from the New York Jets, grabbing Chris Herndon to play tight end probably wasn't a bad idea. They have a couple superstars on defense. It's going to be weird seeing Patrick Peterson play for the Vikings, but that'll be interesting. But I think the defense will still be above average. They've got a lot of nice pieces. The Kirk Cousins thing could really become an issue for them down the road, so we'll see. But that's one I would probably the only one of the. I
feel like we've been saying that about Kirk Cousins for the last 6 years.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But like I said, I probably will bet the Vikings to win the division, just on that chance that something implodes in Green Bay, because I do think they're the after the Packers, they're the best coach team in the North, and they have the best roster. So that's who I would think would step up.
Yeah, and you mentioned Dalvin Cook. I like a lot of his bets this season. His over-under for yardage is 1,350, and his over-under for touchdowns is 12.5. They're going to have to lean on him heavy, even if Cousins is staying in at quarterback. I think he's going to have a monster year.
Man, those are some big numbers.
The big thing with him, of course, is health. Don't go overboard with the bets, but he is also plus 600 to lead the league in rushing, and he's plus 500 to lead the league in rushing touchdowns. Derrick Henry would be the favorite in both of those categories.
Yeah, I have no problem. I have no problem with any of those bets. So I do believe Dalvin Cook is a top 5 running back in the league, and with those guys, a couple huge weeks can make the difference. So I would probably stay away because those are some really big numbers, but I can understand if you bet those.
All right, well, I'll wade into that pond. The plus 300 for the North does nothing for me. I think Green Bay's fine. I think a lot of that has been played up in the media. I think they're going to handle their business in the regular season. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to want to throw away a chance at a Super Bowl because he's warring with his GM. Unless everything hits the fan, I guess, would be the caveat that I'll leave myself with that. You know, if somebody gets hurt before the trade deadline and Green Bay doesn't even try to make a move, maybe, I don't know, but I think they end up getting through this season. And then we'll see. Maybe Rodgers gets traded next year. Maybe he doesn't. Like, maybe Green Bay just decides to be assholes to him. I don't know. All right, moving on. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I guess it's time to talk about these two other teams.
Yeah, so the Chicago Bears, their over-under sits at 7.5. Do you think the Chicago Bears are going to win more than 7.5 games, Jimmy? And how? So I guess that's not even the question we should be asking. The real question we should be asking is, when does Andy Dalton sit the bench and Justin Fields come in and play?
So to your first question, I will be hammering this under.
Ooh, we disagree. I like the over.
See, I think at the most they get to 6.
Interesting.
Like, I see them, I have for sure wins for them against the Bengals, the Lions twice, and the Raiders, with possible wins of the 49ers, Steelers, Cardinals, and Giants. I don't see 8 wins there. The rest of their schedule is tough. To answer your other question, I would absolutely hammer the over. if I believed Andy Dalton was going to the bench in week 2 or week 3. I don't understand one bit what the hell Matt Nagy is doing, but I don't see how you can watch these preseason games, continue to say Andy Dalton is my QB1, Andy Dalton is my QB1, and then when you watch Andy Dalton play in the regular season and he's Andy Dalton, then go, oh, Andy Dalton's not my QB1. Like, you know what Andy Dalton is, so I don't know if Justin Fields plays quarterback for Matt Nagy as the head coach.
Oh, he definitely will.
I think he may play quarterback for the Chicago Bears this year, but I don't think it'll be for Matt Nagy as his head coach.
So here's why I'm taking the Bears over 7.5. Who was the Bears quarterback the last 3 seasons, Jimmy?
Mostly your boy Mitchell Trubisky.
And Mitchell Trubisky is not good at football.
He's not.
These are the number. So for the 3 years that Nagy had Trubisky, he won 12, 8, and 8 games. Now, this is not an endorsement of Andy Dalton by any means, because he was dreadful last year when he filled in for Dak Prescott, and that team was a mess. But Andy Dalton is better than Mitch Trubisky.
See, here's the thing, though. Maybe in a bubble, Andy Dalton is better than Mitch Trubisky, but most of those Bears wins came from checkdowns to Tariq Cohen the previous 2 years, and then just Mitch Trubisky just making stuff happen with his legs. I don't know if Matt Nagy knows how to call plays for a guy who's just got to stand in the pocket and throw the football.
Yeah, but Andy Dalton can check down to any number of running backs that are in that Bears team for Matt Nagy for at least like 2 or 3 weeks, and then when Justin Fields comes in, they'll actually be they'll be like bad mediocre.
All right, man.
I think that gets them to 8 and 9. Come on, Jimmy. You know how much I hate saying nice things about the Bears.
Yeah, I'm stunned at this. Man, no, I can't.
You sound like I put something awful under your nose.
I think you did. No, but they have some really good skill position players that actually play really well with Justin Fields' skill set. I don't understand. I don't know why Andy Dalton's the starter. I don't know what Matt Nagy's seeing.
Well, that's because Matt Nagy promised that he was going to start him. And that's what he did. And I think Nick Wright has been 100% on the nose with this. He promised Andy Dalton that Andy Dalton would get a chance to start week 1, and he didn't give himself an out. And now he's screwed. He's got to stick with Andy Dalton, even though he's got another quarterback that's better. But we've seen this happen before. This happened to the Browns in Baker's rookie year. They started Tyrod Taylor, and he did mostly middling, and then Baker came in, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, that guy's just better.
Yeah, I'm not certain if Andy Dalton's better than Mitch Trubisky.
Wow. That's just a rough statement, and just shows the current state of Andy Dalton, ladies and gentlemen.
Man, he looked so bad in Dallas last year. He looked really bad in Dallas last year, and the pieces around him in Dallas are way better than the pieces in Chicago.
Yeah, but Matt Nagy's a better coach than Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, no arguments there. I'll give you that.
Okay, speaking of things that are gross when put under your nose, the Detroit Lions, Jimmy. Their over-under sits at 5. Do the Detroit Lions win 5 or more games?
So I know when they make the over-unders, they are very much trying to get action one way or the other. Dude, I looked hard at the Detroit Lions schedule. The Cincinnati Bengals are the only winnable game I see for them. Plain and simple. I'm hammering this under. I think the Detroit Lions could lose every game, maybe beat the Bengals and win 1 game.
Wow.
Dude, their schedule is pretty hard. As much as I don't like the Bears, I still think the Bears the Bears front seven will handle whatever the Lions can do. I think the Lions are going to have a horrible year. I see them winning one game.
You don't trust Dan Campbell and his we're going to bite ankles and, I don't know, pull hair and whatever it was that he said in his press conference that was completely ridiculous for a guy that was on a team that got caught in Bountygate?
Exactly. I don't think this guy knows what he's doing. I am not sold at all. As a Rams fan, I'm very happy to see Jared Goff in Detroit.
That comment you just made was very reminiscent of what you said about when you were summing up the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you just summed it up with it just doesn't look good.
I have, especially last year and again this year, if he's healthy, I'm very pro DeAndre Swift. I think he can be a superstar running back in this league if he had coaches that knew what they were doing. Now, here's something I will say about their wide receiver core. When I truthfully looked at their numbers and looked at the players, recently cut from the Cleveland Browns, Kadero Hodge may very well be the best wide receiver on the Lions roster.
Wow.
And I like
Kadero
Hodge more than Hollywood Higgins, but he certainly should not be a wide receiver one level talent. And I look at their wide receivers and I feel like he may be that.
And just real quick on Kadero Hodge, he was somebody that I thought did more, and then when I looked up his actual stats, he's done nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done nothing. Yep. So everybody talks about him like he could be something, but he looks like a guy that can actually catch the ball, which is always useful in receivers, but on a bad team where he's the only guy that can reliably catch the ball, you can single cover Kadero Hodge and be fine. You don't need to double cover him.
Nope. I mean, I look at their roster. I look at their roster construction. I look at their schedule. Maybe Dan Campbell surprises me. I looked at their coaching staff. There was nobody there that maybe go, oh, well, they've got this guy in the room. He'll make it better. I don't see that with them. I think it's going to be a horrible season for Detroit.
So I guess this is a good time to mention the Detroit Lions are plus 350 to have the worst record in the league.
Yeah, I'll be making that bet.
The Houston Texans are the favorites at plus 250, and then the Jets at plus 750. So the Lions and the Texans, that's what Vegas thinks are going to be the teams battling it out for. Usually the worst teams in the league are somewhere in the 1-3 win range, and that's pretty much where I have both those teams.
Yeah, but I do think as much of the Deshaun Watson mess, as much as the coaching staff is a mess, I think Houston has enough professionals on their roster that they've got some guys that will help them win, at least in the 3-5 win range. I don't think the Lions can do that.
I don't know. The Lions and the Texans both look like prime candidates to give up halfway through the season.
I would agree with that, too. Absolutely.
All right. Any final thoughts on the NFC North, Jimmy?
Not really. Like I said, I think Green Bay, as long as Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers, and this may very well be a kind of FU tour for Aaron Rodgers. He could, like I said, he may go to that game in San Francisco and just absolutely light up the world. I'm very excited to see what they do, and I hope the Vikings have a little bounce back because you were higher on them than I was last year, but we both like the Vikings, and they really disappointed. So I hope they bounce back. I do hope we get to see Justin Fields early in the season, and I'm going to enjoy watching the Lions lose game after game. So that'll be fun. No, I don't think the NFC North is a very strong division. I think the Packers probably go undefeated in the division unless the Vikings sneak a game from them. So I think it's just kind of been the whole story of Aaron Rodgers' career. Have a pretty darn good regular season and then just come up against a better team with better coaches in the playoffs and get bounced.
Yeah, this seems to be a pretty predictable division. Although that doesn't mean it'll happen that way, but Green Bay just looks better than everybody else in the division and not better than the best teams in the NFC West or the NFC South.
Yep.
And that's a good segue. That'll wrap up the NFC North. We'll be going over the NFC South next. Jimmy, thank you for joining me.
No place I'd rather be, brother.
All right, for Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore, and this is No Broken Legs.
Every action has a repercussion. Lyrical bullets don't make me get the bussin'. Representing for the people.